put on table in the G20 issues related to regulating or understanding that there should be a framework for handling issues related to crypto assets. Active discussions are happening. Content-rich papers from institutions like IMF, FSB, OECD are all being discussed on various issues and on...
It's got the Union Jack, as you can see on the tail. India Today's cameras capturing the first images of Rishi Sunak's aircraft having arrived just a moment ago at the Palam Technical Area in Delhi. Rishi Sunak's bilateral with the Indian table for Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Sunak when they speak later at the G20 Summit tomorrow. Gaurav Sawant continues to be with me. Gaurav, the VIP jet carrying the British Prime Minister has just landed. Any moment now, the doors are going to open. Rishi Sunak will be walking down to the red carpet. He will be received there by dignitaries. Just summarize for us, Gaurav, the India-UK relationship in terms of what is hoped to be achieved at the G20. Sunak is a man of Indian origin. He's the son-in-law of Narayan Murthy and Sudha Murthy. Well known here in India. High expectations from this relationship. What do you expect, Gaurav?
Shiv, the second part of what you said, extremely crucial, equally crucial, his India connect. Remember, it made headlines across the country the moment he said Jai Siya Ram when he was at the Cambridge University at Murari Bapu's discourse. So, that apart, that of course is the soft part of that visit. But on the hard part, Rishi Sunak, of course, is very keen that the Russia-Ukraine conflict is not just mentioned, but India uses all our clout, our country's clout with Russia. One, to see if this war stops. Two, the wording is very important. Shiv, you are well aware of UK's close ties with Ukraine. When Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister, he travelled to Kiev, and I was reporting from Kiev that time. The kind of military hardware that UK has provided to Ukraine, the kind of training that UK is providing to the Ukrainian forces. But so many, months down that war, it's 1 year and close to 17 months. Now, in all this time, that conflict hasn't come to an end. And now the effort is, Shiv, to find an end to that conflict. And that's the point India has been making throughout, Shiv, as you well know. India has been saying, dialogue, ceasefire, both sides come on the negotiating table and they talk. India is happy to facilitate. India has said that in that interaction with the Russian president on the sidelines of the SCO that this is not the era of a war. But then, if the West wants Russia defeated and that's not happening and they're holding everything else to ransom, that also cannot happen. And that is where the joint communique, every word is being looked at so very closely. Shiv, Rishi Sunak, when he comes to India, apart from this big Ukraine talk, there's also the India-UK trade talks. They'll attempt to take that forward. Shiv, you and I have also talked about the military hardware that the two countries are talking about, people-to-people exchange that the two countries are talking about. So India and UK, share a very historic relationship. Just a short while back, you and I were talking about Sheikh Hasina and Bangladesh. That's again a very crucial relationship. When she, interacts with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, there is that rupee taka, and that is India's big push, the digital transformation push. So that rupee taka card, the rail link from Tripura to Bangladesh, the power plant, all of that is very big. So India is saying, let the developing world come forward, take them along, don't hold everything to ransom over the Russia-Ukraine conflict, because that is not the main problem of the developing world. UN is the platform for that, not G20.
Very, very interesting. Gaurav, stay with me. I'm coming right back to you. Ashwini Kumar Chaubey, Minister for Consumer Affairs, Food and Civil Supplies, standing there at the red carpet at the Palam Technical Area, ready to receive the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak as he walks down, as he's going to deplane any moment now. These are live pictures, viewer, not edited. These are live pictures from the Palam Technical Airport. It's an Air Force base on the outskirts of Delhi, where VIP planes by world leaders land. This is not the Indira Gandhi International Airport, even though they are, of course, connected, via various taxiways and apronways. But this is where Rishi Sunak and all other world leaders are landing. The Air Force oversees the security of this particular area. Security agencies also all completely involved. The Union Jack is flying right before British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak emerges from that aircraft. He's going to be holding his bilateral with Prime Minister Modi tomorrow, even though he arrives before some of the leaders who will be holding those bilaterals today. That's only a matter of scheduling. Rishi Sunak, remember, is the husband of Akshata Murthy, the daughter of Infosys co-founder Narayan Murthy, and his wife Sudha Murthy, the well-known writer and philanthropist. They are also going to be meeting him. They have a special event for their son-in-law, the British Prime Minister, and we'll tell you a little bit about that a little later from now. Ashwini Kumar Chaube is Union Minister for Food and Civil Supplies, and he will be in charge of welcoming the British Prime Minister onto Indian soil very shortly. You can see Alex Ellis, that's the UK High Commissioner to India. He's the man in the black suit in the center who's also there. You have a protocol officer from the Indian Air Force in the blue uniform to the left, and a few other officials, including, I think you've got the defense attaché from the British High Commission also next to the British High Commissioner, all assembled at the VIP technical area in Delhi, awaiting British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak as he gets ready to step out of his aircraft. The Rishi Sunak Prime Minister Modi event is scheduled for tomorrow at the Bharat Mandapam at Pragati Maidan. Today's bilaterals between the Indian Prime Minister. Okay, the door's opening. Rishi Sunak about to get down from his plane. A great frame there with the Union Jack fluttering right before the British Prime Minister emerges from that aircraft. The welcoming party is ready. Ashwini Kumar Chaube, Union Minister, leading that swagat for the British Prime Minister. And there they are. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Akshata Murthy, the First Lady of the United Kingdom, emerging from their aircraft to a very warm welcome on Indian soil. Both are Desis, both are Indians, and this is a very special relationship that the two leaders are going to be taking forward. Ashwini Kumar Chaube shaking hands with the British Prime Minister, personally welcoming him. A nice, warm, cultural welcome, emphasizing the deep cultural ties between India and the United Kingdom. Akshata Murthy, the daughter of Infosys founder Narayan Murthy, N.R. Narayan Murthy, and Sudha Murthy, has also accompanied her husband, the British Prime Minister, as they exchange pleasantries with the welcoming party. You see the car there awaiting the British Prime Minister, and which will be taking him to his hotel. Alex Ellis, the British High Commissioner, warm embrace with the British Prime Minister. They, of course, know each other very well. The defense attaché of the British High Commission shaking hands with the British Prime Minister and his wife.
So high I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. the sky on your mind. Flying, get on board.
Even higher in terms of trade, in terms of joint development goals, in terms of climate change, in terms of security issues, in terms of joint military preparedness. All of these are going to become very, very important going forward at this time. The bulletproof vehicle with the British Prime Minister and his wife now all set to depart from the VIP terminal of the Palam Technical Area in Delhi and will transport the British Prime Minister and his wife and his security team to their hotel. He'll be staying in one of the hotels. Remember, all the big hotels in Delhi have been completely booked for the world leaders arriving for the G20 Summit. So if you've been trying to get a room somewhere in the national capital over this weekend, well, our commiserations, we understand your pain. It's very, very difficult. The G20 has basically completely overwhelmed all hospitality resources, as you can imagine. The Prime Minister of Japan will be arriving a short while from now. These lovely, lovely pictures of Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, arriving in Delhi. Okay, Let's go across to Gaurav and Polomi once again. They're joining us. Gaurav, the bilateral between the Indian Prime Minister and Rishi Sunak is scheduled for tomorrow at the G20 Summit. Can you tell us about what's on the table when both these leaders, get into that bilateral? This is an old relationship with a great deal of history. You've seen Rishi Sunak talk about how Ukraine is something that he does want to bring up during the G20. But in the ambit of the bilateral between India and the UK, what do you see as the big, the big things to look out for, Gaurav?
The FTA, the free trade agreement, UK is very keen to push it. India is very keen to push it. They've had multiple rounds of negotiations, but there still remains some ground to cover. Their aim is to double, their trade by 2030. But will they be able to do it? Will they be able to remove all the niggles that they've been trying to for quite some time? Remember, Shiv, you and I had reported that they'd kept a Diwali deadline to do so, but they hadn't been able to meet that Diwali deadline last time. They pushed it forward. Both sides negotiating hard to ensure that they're able to get the best for their respective countries. So that's point one, people-to-people cooperation. That's point two. Again, they're very, very warm. But at the same time, the effort is to take it altogether to a new level. More access to British universities for Indian students is something that is being looked at. There is also an apprehension, Shiv, now increasingly, not just in the United States of America, but also at least in parts of Europe, increasing number of increasing Chinese activities across Europe and the United States of America. And by and large, there is a realization, while there is apprehension about the Chinese, there is confidence about the Indians. And their effort is to bring in more Indian students to once again take that relationship forward on those lines. You and I have reported extensively on the defense ties between India and the United Kingdom. Shiv, when we talk bilateral, you also talk about, some of our fugitives who've been living and living quite comfortably, unfortunately, in the United Kingdom. Often there has been criticism that UK has become a safe haven for Indian fugitives from law who've been exploiting UK's legal system to their advantage. So India is also pushing to ensure that those fugitives are brought back and brought back quickly. That's taken a lot of time. So, in the multilaterals, even, otherwise, UK is trying to push for India to do more in terms of the Russia-Ukraine war. But India, again, repeatedly makes that point that not every platform can be used only to put across one point, where India's only point is a settlement can only be found through dialogue and negotiation, Shiv.
Very, very comprehensive and layered relationship between India and the United Kingdom, Gaurav, that you've summarized for us. It's going to be interesting to see what the two prime ministers actually achieve, because by all accounts, it is clear that India-UK relationships are at a cusp of even greater things. In fact, Gaurav and Polomi, continue to stay with me. We spoke last night to the uncle of Rishi Sunak. Remember, Rishi Sunak is of Indian origin, and some extended members of his family have planned a welcome bash for the British Prime Minister in India as well. We spoke to his uncle last night. Here's what he said.
All family members are very excited about it, and we are very happy that he is coming to India after after he became a prime minister. Okay. And a lot of those who are in the family also have great excitement is there. For the first time, India is hosting such a big event, and we are all proud of it. His achievements of Narendra Modi, his leadership is exemplary.
Poulomi, if I can come to you now, lovely images of the British Prime Minister and his wife Akshata Murthy, coming down from their aircraft and being greeted by the Indian welcoming party. Do we know if Akshata's parents are going to be, attending any part of the G20? Is there going to be any time for the British Prime Minister to meet with his family at all? Do we know?
4, 5, 6.
Well, that hasn't been revealed yet by the embassy in terms of what the UK Prime Minister's schedule is going to be, aside from, of course, attending the G20 Summit. But yes, like we do know that there are programs that have been organized for the spouses of G20 leaders and delegates as well, which surely Akshata Murthy will be, joining in on. But yes, there might be some family time that the two will in fact spend here in New Delhi, because they've obviously touched down in India after a while, and it is going to be extremely crucial for them to spend that kind of time, and which is what they're going to do as well. And obviously the family, as you heard over there, one of his maternal uncles, Rishi Sunak's maternal uncles there, telling India Today that the family is all set to welcome the two. So clearly there is going to be, you saw that banter as well that took place between Rishi Sunak, questions that were being asked by Akshata Murthy when they were in fact watching the Bihu dancers perform at Palam Airport. They were asking questions of the Minister for Consumer Affairs and Environment, Ashwini Chaubey. Clearly, they are, of course, they've touched down as far as their roots are concerned, and there will be some time that will be spent with family as well. We do not know if Narendra Murthy and Sudha Murthy will be at the gala dinner, which will be hosted by the Rashtrapati tomorrow evening, because we've been told that no business leader has been invited, but their family, so we don't know if they would in fact be present on this occasion.
Very, very interesting to see, not just the many different parts of the agenda for Rishi Sunak and Akshata Murthy, but also the deep ties that they obviously have with India, and what it will actually translate into in terms of that relationship between India and the United Kingdom. Illustrious couple, illustrious parents, illustrious family, and relations that can go entirely to the next level. India Today's Nabila is at the a location in the national capital where the families, the first ladies, the contingents and other VIPs, when they are not at the G20, could be spending time. And it's a very, very special arrangement. Take a look at this report she just sent us.
I'm at the NGMA, National Gallery of Modern Art in Delhi, and this is precisely where all the spouses of the delegates will be entertained. Here's a quick look at the pandas that have been set up, where all the state heads and their wives, almost 18 of them we believe are going to be arriving. Joe Biden's wife, though, is not going to be here, but apart from that, all the other state heads and their spouses particularly, will be welcomed at the NGMA to take a close look at India's heritage and culture, as of course the state heads themselves are busy at the G20 Summit discussing and deliberating on issues. But this is an opportunity for India to show its prowess and cultural heritage to the delegates and their families. Now here's a quick look at the very museum at the NGMA, which is opened up specifically and organized as part of the G20 Summit, that shows India's rich heritage. I'm going to start with this chariot here, this royal chariot. This is from the times of Mahabharata, that has been placed right here, the center, to welcome. Do follow me. I'm going to get you some glimpses of the great gallery here, the very beautiful gallery that's been set up, that shows languages, the number of languages, the kind of cultures that India really boasts of in detail. So here's a quick look at the gallery, which really shows scriptures, languages, different languages. In fact, there's a lot of significance to Sanskrit, and a lot that's been spoken about of Jammu and Kashmir as well as part of this gallery here. Here's a quick look at this gallery here that you see. where we're seeing cultures all the way from the north to south, and the kind of civilization that India boasts of. It's called The Roots and the Roots. The exhibition is called Roots and Roots, which the delegates will be inaugurating themselves. So all the ethos of India, its heritage, its culture, all the marvels in the Indian sagas, the archaeological artifacts, literatures, epigraphy, paintings. This is possibly the best way that we can imagine the dignitaries will be able to get a grasp of what India is all about.
So that's where the first ladies and others will, get some.
The sort of type of ideas that we will use when we come to power. Last question.
When you were talking to the parliamentarians, you said there was a conversation and you were informing them about.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has planned the G20 Summit in a way that he includes all and one in terms of getting the real voices of various parts of the world and India's strategic partners. It's not just the member states. India has also invited guests to be a part of the G20 Summit. And I'm being joined by one of the most important ones in that list, in that category. I have the Prime Minister of Mauritius joining us here on India Today, Praveen Kumar Jagannath. Thank you so much for joining us here on India Today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's begin with the fact that as a guest country, what does Mauritius, which is strategically located, achieve from the summit, and what do you hope to achieve from the summit?
Well, let me first of all thank the government of India and particularly Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji for the invitation. It is, of course, the first time that Mauritius is participating to a G20 Heads of State Summit, and of course it is a great honor and privilege. We are looking forward to constructively
सारे लोगों के सामने, देश विदेश के लोगों के सामने आप अपनी कला दर्शाएंगी, कैसा लग रहा है आपको?
बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है
इसको क्या कहते हैं जिस पर
इसको पूरा हैंडलूम पूरा
ये हैंडलूम है जी।
लूम है, इसको हम लूम बोलते हैं। ये हमारे ही WSC के कारपेंटर ने अपने हाथों द्वारा बनाया है इसको।
बहुत ही अलग और सुंदर लग रहा है, मुझे लगा कुछ और can you tell us about what's on display over here?
Yeah, firstly, good morning. I must tell you that where you are presently standing is the Northeast Pavilion, which is a combination of 8 northeastern states, starting from, we have Sikkim, then it's Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Meghalaya, and onto my left, you have the states of Assam, Mizoram, Nagaland and Tripura.
Right.
So, as you all know, that Northeast is one of the most beautiful, enriched part of India. And so we are here presenting the entire Northeast as a bouquet in for all its glory. And as you notice on the fascias, we don't have the states being mentioned separately.
Right. Yeah,
it is focused Northeast. So we want to tell the world that this is where their attention should be, and it should be focusing on Northeast, which is so diverse and yet very united when it comes to, the communities and the states themselves.
Absolutely. The gentleman trying to show you some.
It's called rainmaker.
That's called a rainmaker.
Yeah. It's the sound of rain.
Oh, that's beautiful. Actually, it's like drizzling water, right?
Can you guess what's inside this?
No, you tell us.
Dried green jam inside this.
What?
Dried green jam.
Dried green grass.
Moong dal, moong dal.
Moong dal, right? Yeah, of course. Wow. Okay, this.
It's a natural amplifier.
Oh yeah, the sound just got louder. That's the actual sound, and then you put that in. Oh wow. I don't need a sound box at home. I just need that. That's beautiful. This is from where? Where is this from?
Kerala.
From Kerala.
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations. That's extremely ingenious and beautiful.
And as you can see, it's completely ready for that G20 summit. The first part of what's going to happen will be at the Prime Minister's residence, but everything is going to happen at the gorgeous Bharat Mandapam, a real venue of pride for every Indian. We're taking a very quick break. 100 hours of non-stop coverage continues right here on India Today. Once again, thanks very much for making us the most watched channel, and there's a reason for it. Come right back after this break.
Can't tame it, can't ignore it.
The India Today group brings together unmissable super sharp global thinkers and strategists. Top foreign affairs guru.
It has to be a world with a greater sense of purpose, of vision, of values.
Leading expert on global political risk.
Xi Jinping is not surrounded by a bunch of reformers right now.
Leading global economists.
India's economy should be able to grow.
Ex-president of the United Nations Security Council.
This is an indication that relations between China and India still remain very troubled.
The Indian imperative, debated like never before. Only on India Today.
Talking about 20 nations, developing countries, their prime ministers and presidents are arriving. This is a big moment for our country. It's a rotational presidency, sure, but it's a moment to come at a very crucial juncture when the global order is also witnessing a change. Who's set to arrive and when? Who's going to be receiving them? Let's begin first, one by one, at the arrivals that we are expecting. Now remember, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is set to arrive at about 1:40 p.m. in the afternoon. He'll be one of those first high-profile guests to arrive. Followed by Rishi Sunak will be another president that we'll set to arrive, and let's go across to
Welcome, Mr. Khaitan. So good to have you on Business Today television. Ramakrishna Forgings has, of course, been one of the heroes of this particular rally that has taken root on the Lal Street and is in the business of providing die forgings of carbon and alloy steel, micro alloy steel, and of course stainless steel. They make things like crown wheels, ring gears, crankshafts, connecting rods, steering arms, tie rod arms, and of course stub axles. These are all things that you see going into a car.
Prime Minister Fumio Kishida took office as Japan's Prime Minister of Japan. With his contingent has just landed in Delhi. The bilateral between the Japanese Prime Minister and Prime Minister Modi will be taking place tomorrow. So we've got all of that information for you. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida took office as Japan's Prime Minister in October 2021. He takes forward a legacy of very close relations between India and Japan, following the Prime Ministership of Shinzo Abe, who is unfortunately no more. The welcoming committee for Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who is here along with his wife and his contingent. The volume of trade between the two countries has increased dramatically. India was the 18th largest trading partner for Japan. Japan was the 13th largest trading partner for India in 2021, and that is set to go up quite dramatically. The G20 Summit took place on the 28th and 29th of June 2019 in Japan's Osaka, and now it is in India. The Indian Prime Minister had, of course, attended the G20 Summit in Osaka in 2019. That was when Shinzo Abe was the Prime Minister of Japan, and now Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister of Japan, is in India for the G20. India-Japan relations on technology, on AI, on climate change, on security. Remember, Japan is part of the Quad, and India and the United States, Australia and Japan make up the Quad of military powers that could come together in times of conflict, not just in an international alliance. That aspect will also be taken forward between India and Japan. Two big leaders who've just arrived within about 30 minutes of each other. The British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. They both have their bilaterals with the Indian Prime Minister tomorrow. Today's bilateral schedule by the Indian Prime Minister are with Joe Biden, the President of the United States, who touches down in about 4 hours from now. The Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who has already arrived, and the Mauritius Prime Minister, who arrived in the national capital yesterday. So it's a busy schedule that has already kicked off with all of these world leaders now on Indian soil. There are a few more who will be arriving. President Biden touches down at about 7 p.m. The UK and Japanese Prime Ministers arriving within about 35 minutes of each other, and both now in India's national capital. A very warm welcome extended to each of the world leaders who've arrived. Joe Biden arrives at 7 p.m. Fumio Kishida is also staying at one of Delhi's luxury hotels, and his big bilateral with the Indian Prime Minister is scheduled for tomorrow. There are more leaders who will be arriving shortly. Remember, there are over 23 world leaders expected to touch down today. Many of them already have. Prime Minister Meloni of Italy arrived a short while ago. Sheikh Hasina, you see there in that second image from the right. Rishi Sunak and then Fumio Kishida. Just 4 of the several others who've already touched down. The Nigerian president had arrived a couple of days ago. He had some medical appointments in the National Capital Territory that he has attended to, so that's why he arrived a little earlier than the others. The Argentinian president has also arrived. Brazilian president and other leaders will be arriving very shortly. Remember, the two notable absentees, Xi Jinping of China, Vladimir Putin of Russia, the Mexican president are not attending the G20 summit this year for various reasons. We've been putting that into context for you. There are many reasons why Xi Jinping, for instance, has decided to skip. But as you can see in these images, the body language, the fervor, and just the tone and tenor of these pictures and these optics, that the G20 is already a success. Now, there are some hiccups as far as the Delhi Declaration is concerned, but all of these powerful world leaders in one place today, tomorrow and the day after will be hammering out what the Delhi Declaration will be in terms of a new world order, and a declaration where India's presidency has seen one of the biggest. I want to also give you a sense of the arrangements around not just the G20 summit, but the surround sound and what's happening in other parts of the national capital to keep the world leaders, their spouses, the first ladies and their contingents entertained and occupied during the G20 summit and those long meetings. Here's Minister Meenakshi Lekhi speaking to India Today's Nabila at the Museum of Modern Art in the national capital.
The National Museum of Art Gallery is all decked up and decorated for the delegates to be coming in. We believe that you're going to be entertaining them. Tell us what's in store in this center.
I would not say I'm going to be entertaining, but we are going to be entertaining as Government of India. And this is the place where spouses are going to collect. And we are trying to give them a very visually very pleasant experience, from gourmet point of view, a pleasant experience, and also the shopping experience. So telling them about India's culture and heritage through a beautiful exhibition which has been curated by a very important person who was formerly the secretary of this ministry.
Right.
And this is called Roots to Roots.
Yeah, we saw that.
And from that experience to gourmet, to shopping, to food, to culture, to art, one district, one product, carpets from Mirzapur to Kashmir, we have it all.
You know, this is possibly the best way that India can showcase its rich civilization.
Absolutely. And we are a very rich nation. I mean, we have... in every sense, on one side we have the latest technology, digital products and digital public goods infrastructure. On the other side, we are a country which has preserved its heritage for thousands of years. And cuisine, every region has a different cuisine. The thoughts are the same, so that's unity in diversity, and that's who we are.
Who are the first ladies who are expected here? We know
so
that
there's a sequence of them, and there's a list of them.
A quick word on the cuisine that's going to be laid out.
Yes, it's going to be Indian food, catered to a Western palate.
Yeah. Tell us a little more on WHO today, declaring that India has managed to achieve its digital prowess in 6 years versus what could have expected to be 5 decades.
So that only goes to show, and I have been repeatedly saying this, that if a country needs to progress, it's government, public sector and private sector, and individuals, everybody needs to move in the same direction and work together. And our digital success is because of that, because we were one of the early ones who rolled out 5G. We are in the process of rolling out of 5G. A lot of investment came in from the private sector. The government was the one who utilized technology, made policies and worked on it. And everybody, from the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich, shifted to the phone banking. And that goes to show the strength of India.
And finally, with the G20 summit, what do you think, how is it going to be projecting India on the global stage?
So India is going to be projected on the global stage, that true to our motto, Vasudev Kutumbakam, the world is one big family, which we all believe in and live by. We also believe and live by Atithi Devo Bhav, which is for everyone to see. In addition to the fact, the Prime Minister's clarion call, Vikas bhi or Virasat bhi. So you see a lot of Virasat, and you also see a lot of work which we have done in terms of Vikas.
It's all on absolute display here. Thank you very much.
Okay, I want to take you back to the Bharat Mandapam now, where India Today's Poulomi Saha standing by at the venue where the press conference is about to be addressed by the G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant and the Foreign Secretary of the country. Poulomi, this is going to be an interesting press conference because, like we broke a short while ago, the Delhi Declaration is seeing some hiccups as far as unanimity on the issue of Ukraine is concerned. But we're going to get a full picture now right ahead of the G20 on that and every other aspect. You're there at the press conference venue, Poulomi.
That's right. Shiv, in fact, we will cut across to the press conference. The Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra, Indian Sherpa to G20 Amitabh Kant, as well as Chief Coordinator Harsh Shringla addressing that press conference, Shiv, at the moment.
Hello, sir, please. Okay, the press conference has begun. We're cutting across live now.
May I first and foremost request there be some degree of discipline and order here. The camera person known to all of you. I am Arindam Bagchi, spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs. May I first and foremost request there be some degree of phone cameras and try to take photos. It disturbs the cameras at the back. May I request all of you to follow that. I see a lot of people here on the right. Please note you're blocking the passages. Thank you very much. Welcome to all of you here. Yeah, if you have to be there, please do sit down. Please do not block camera from behind you. A very warm welcome to all of you to the opening activities of the International Media Center here at Bharat Mandapam, Pragati Maidan. We are delighted that there is such a large turnout of media from India and across the world. Your presence here is testimony to that. From tomorrow morning, we have one of the very important activities of the G20 at this G20 Summit being hosted by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. To give us a sense of what all is in store and what has been happening so far, we have our proud privilege to have here on the dais Shri Amitabh Kant, Indian Sherpa, joining him Shri Ajay Seth, Secretary DA, also the Finance Deputy of the process. Next to him, Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Chief Coordinator of the G20, and on my left, Shri Vinay Quatra, Foreign Secretary. I would request them to make brief opening remarks, after which we will open the floor. Sir, if I could hand over the floor to you, sir.
Thank you, Arindam. When India took over the presidency of G20 in Indonesia, at Bali, we were in the midst of a scenario of slowing growth and productivity worldwide. There was a huge impact of COVID-19 pandemic, which had led to vast segments of the global population going below the poverty line. Vast number of people had lost their jobs. There was a cost of living debt crisis. There had been a reversal on the Sustainable Development Goals. There was a challenge of climate crisis and climate action. At that point, India felt that we should start our presidency with the theme of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That is, the world is one family. We are one earth, one family, and we should have one future. And the Prime Minister, who's the leader of G20 from India, and I act as his Sherpa, he said that our presidency, India's presidency, should actually be inclusive, it should be ambitious, it should be decisive, and it should be action-oriented. And these are the 4 principles on which we have worked. And I can assure you that we have lived up to his vision of being inclusive, ambitious, action-oriented, and very, very decisive during our presidency. During this presidency, we had some broad priorities with which we started. And these priorities were very critical for the global world. First of which that at a point of time when the 1/3 of the world is facing a recession, we should drive bold, sustainable, strong, and inclusive growth. The second key priority for us was to have accelerated sustainable development goals, because only 12 of the 169 SDGs are on track, and we are way behind the schedule. We are midway at the 2030 action point, but we are way behind, and therefore accelerating SDGs, improving learning outcomes, health outcomes, nutrition, all these were very critical for India's presidency. Thirdly, we wanted the world to take the lead on green development in the context of climate action and climate finance. And there were several components of this which we wanted to drive, and therefore green development, climate action, climate finance was our third priority. And because both SDGs and climate action require finance, particularly for developing and emerging markets in the global south, it was critical that we focus on multilateral institutions of the 21st century, how to redesign and reform them. And our view was that global south, developing countries, emerging markets, which has been a very, very key component of India's presidency, must be able to get long-term financing and must be able to use new instruments for financing to drive both SDG and climate finance. So, the fifth priority of India's presidency was that we must have technological development and digital public infrastructure. Because if we have to lift vast segments of the population, if we have to make a difference to the global south, technology will be the key driver. And most of the innovations in the world have come from the big tech in the West, and even in China they've come from big tech. But India has created a very unique model of digital public infrastructure, which is open source, open API, is interoperable, and has enabled digital identity for every citizen, has enabled bank account for every citizen, has enabled everyone to do fast payments, has enabled everyone to improve learning outcomes and health outcomes. And during the COVID, we were able to do 2.2 billion COVID vaccinations. And therefore, technological development and how to use digital public infrastructure to drive growth, when 4 billion people of the world do not have digital identity, about 3 billion people do not have bank accounts, and over 133 countries do not have fast payments. That was critical from India's priorities perspective. And the last key priority, which the Prime Minister elucidated and which he felt very strongly about, was women-led development, to bring women-led development, to bring women empowerment and gender equality. So these have been the 6 key priorities of India on which we have worked. We started our presidency on which the Foreign Secretary will talk about, with a meeting of the Voice of the Global South. We got the perspective of 125 leaders, and then we remained focused on the perspective of the Global South and the requirements of the developing countries. And the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration, which many of you will see post the summit, you will see it as a voice of the Global South and the developing countries. No document in the world would have such a strong voice for the Global South and the developing countries as the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration. And therefore, the Prime Minister's vision of India's G20 presidency being a very inclusive presidency has been our aim. There's been a huge scale and reach of India's presidency. There have been 19 G20 countries and EUs, and the EU, that means 29 special invitee countries. There have been 3 regional organizations. There have been 11 international organizations who participated in all the 220 meetings that took place in India. We were able to use this opportunity to take the meeting to over 60 cities of India and every state and every union territory of India, and use this opportunity to demonstrate the liveliness, the vibrancy and the dynamism of India's federal polity. Every state vigorously participated, and we were able to translate and bring a huge transformation to the city infrastructure in 60 cities. When G20s are held across other countries, they are held in the capital or maximum 2 cities. In India's case, we've held them over 60 cities of India and used this as an opportunity to transform them. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've had over the biggest participation in G20 from across the world. We have had Africa's highest ever participation. In addition to the 29 countries, we have had 32 additional countries. We've been the voice of the Global South. We've done a huge number of Indian, during this period, we've used this opportunity also to push a huge amount of Indian narrative through one district, one product. That is, every district which has come out with a product. Focused, that was the only gift we gave to all the visitors who came during our presidency so that we could have an impact on the lives of our artisans. We have focused on millets, which is critical from the viewpoint of sustainability of agriculture. We have focused on achievements of India as a mother of democracy, as focused on the digital transformation and digital public infrastructure. So with these few words, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you that our presidency has been inclusive, decisive, and action-oriented. Our New Delhi Leaders' Declaration is almost ready. I would not like to dwell on it because this declaration will be recommended to the leaders, and the leaders will then accept it. And only after it has been accepted by the leaders, declaration. With these few words, I'll conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now hand over the floor to Shri Ajay Seth, Deputy Finance.
Let me share some of the priorities which the finance-related work handled during the course of the presidency. Under the leadership of our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, the focus and the vision of India G20 presidency has been to bring focus to the global discourse, to issues which make a difference to people's lives, lead to actionable, decidable, sustainable and inclusive growth, and empower the global growth. Keeping that vision in mind, the priorities which were set and endorsed by finance ministers and governors in February in their first meeting in Bangalore, some of them were how to strengthen multilateral development banks for challenges of 21st century. Similar manner, how to support strong, sustainable, balanced and inclusive growth in the midst of the current challenges which the world is facing. In the same way, how to manage the debt vulnerabilities which several countries are facing. Yet another priorities was that how the technology can be used for financial inclusion, for productivity gains, for efficiency, for private sector. Similarly, how the new potentials of technology such as blockchain or crypto can be beneficial, and yet how to build a policy discourse, the policy approaches, and what set of regulation, building consensus around that. So these were some of the priorities, and during the course of the year, in more than 25 meetings of various working groups, ministers, deputies, these have been deliberated with very intense efforts. And one unique feature of the work has been, I'll put it rather two big elements, two big differences. One was to go beyond the structured meetings and arrange almost 40 seminars, side events, symposiums, inviting domestic as well as global experts and generating a very intense discussion to find a robust way forward. In a similar vein, how to generate the local connect, Jan Bhagidari. Almost 40 events were done on issues which are relevant to people's lives. Based on these deliberations over the course of the year, these recommendations have now been placed for consideration of the leaders. They would be discussing it over the course of next 2 days, and then we will have definite outcomes and we will all share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I request Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Chief Coordinator, sir.
Namaskar and good afternoon. The focus of today's press conference is on the G20 New Delhi Summit. But since many of our media friends have joined us only today, I'll briefly begin by taking you through our presidency journey. As you know, we assumed the presidency of the G20 on the 1st of December last year, and we will conclude our presidency on the 30th of November this year. During the course of our presidency, we would have hosted over 220 G20 meetings in 60 different cities across the length and breadth of our country. In keeping with the Prime Minister's vision of a pan-Indian G20, we will have hosted one G20 meeting in at least one G20 meeting in every state and union territory of India. And to my mind, that is the finest example of cooperative federalism that we can see. Now, the effort has been, of course, to take the G20 down to the grassroots level through a process that we call Jan Bhagidari, which is a people's participation movement. And whether it is through the G20 University Connect or the G20 Model School or quiz, essay and painting competitions and festivals, the G20 has been popularized and taken down to the grassroots levels in our country. We have also looked at the G20 as an opportunity to highlight and showcase India's rich cultural heritage and diversity and our tourism potential. And in that context, we have hosted over 300 cultural events with the participation of over 18,000 of our cultural artists and exponents. Of course, we have also made our presidency an inclusive one. Sherpa has already mentioned that we've had very significant participation from the Global South and from Africa. We would have received a total of about 100,000 visitors for our G20 presidency from over 125 nationalities. And for many of them, this has been the discovery of a new India. And I think that has been very significant from their point of view. Clearly, the G20 presidency will bring economic benefits to our country and to our citizens, and that's also been a very important objective. Now, when you organize such a huge exercise, an unprecedented and uniquely Indian presidency, you do need an organizational base. And we have started on the organization and planning of the G20 as early as the beginning of last year, 1.5 years before today's eve of the summit. We have set up the G20 Secretariat. In this process, it has been a whole of government approach and a whole of nation approach. And every single Indian citizen has been involved in that effort. And it's very important to note that about 15 million of our citizens have been directly involved in the participation of some G20 event or the other across our country. So in that organizational endeavor, we've had guidance from the Prime Minister himself, from cabinet ministers. There is a coordination committee which has been set up under the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, which includes the NSA, which includes cabinet secretaries, senior secretaries, Sherpa and all of us here. And this committee has been meeting regularly. It's met at least 9 times formally, but many times informally, and has provided extensive guidance on every aspect and overseen every aspect of the presidency's organization and management. So I think that was important. Now, on the summit itself, of course, Foreign Secretary and Sherpa will take you through the program elements, but it's important for you to know what else is there and what are the activities and exhibitions and other events which are within the Bharat Mandapam, within the G20 Summit complex. Of course, the media center is one that you have seen. Both halls 4 and 5 have been earmarked for the media center. We expect to host between 2,000 and 3,000 international and domestic media here. It will be a state-of-the-art media center with over 1,300 workstations, high-speed internet, and Additional Secretary XP would have communicated to you the other aspects of this media center. There is an emphasis on the cultural aspects of our presidency as well. There is a very unique exhibition which is called the Cultural Corridor, which will be on display at the Convention Center. This involves the display of cultural artifacts and objects from different countries, both tangible and intangible heritage, but also natural heritage. So this has some very, very interesting exhibits, which the details of which will be available with you. We also have an immersive display, which has, again, some of the best illustrations of every country that is a part of our G20 presidency. And all of this, again, is at the Convention Center. There's a Democracy Cube, which is also there. And what we will certainly do is that we'll make this available, we'll make this open to the media and the public after we finish the immediate summit. And this would be a very interesting exhibition to see. Besides that, we have the Mother of Democracy exhibition. India is the largest democracy, vibrant democracy over the ages, has arranged an exhibition which would be essentially narrating the 7,000-year tradition of democracy in our country from the ancient to the modern. There will be 26 interactive panels which would be available in all of the G20 languages. There are apparently 16 languages in which this will be available. There is also a bronze replica of a girl from the Sindhu Saraswati era, 2,500 to 3,500 years before. And this is a very unique part of the exhibition, at the center of the exhibition. And there will also be someone who will greet everybody. It's artificial intelligence driven, so it's a technology oriented platform. And of course, the person who will greet will also provide an introduction to India's age-old democratic traditions in their respective languages. You are also aware that we will have, at the time of the dinner that will be hosted tomorrow by our President, there will be a musical ensemble which will play in the background. This, of course, will represent, again, musicians from all parts of our country, but it will also include musical traditions of every nature, whether it's Hindustani, Carnatic, folk, bhajans. Every aspect of music in our country will be covered by these 77 musicians, who would also include young students, people who have some disabilities, but also people who are from different walks of life across our country. They will also be displaying some very rare instruments, musical instruments, which are hardly ever seen or played in our country, but this is something that is an opportunity for us to see so many rare instruments coming together in this particular area. Now, there will be a strong emphasis on technology especially technology that is linked to public, digital public infrastructure. And in that context, we will have a few exhibitions at the media center. If you enter the foyer of the media center, you will see a display by our Ministry of Information Technology, which is basically a Digital India Experience Zone, which will have the display of all of the mobile apps and the platforms under which we have arranged to deliver development to the grassroots levels in India, right from Aadhaar to UPI, and this entire India stack will be available. And if any of you do fall sick or have any medical issues, please ensure that you go and connect with eSanjeevani, a digital platform that will have a doctor advise you immediately on the spot. Similarly, we have a Reserve Bank of India Innovation Hub, which is again in the media center. And this Innovation Hub will display technologies that FinTech, which has not yet been introduced to the public domain, these are still in the pilot stages. One of them is the central bank digital currency, through which even international media who are here, who don't have bank accounts in India, will be able to get some money in their mobile wallets and will be able to use that digitally to buy products in our crafts mela, which will be in the adjoining hall, hall number 3. And this crafts mela will also, each stall of the crafts mela, which represents a different state or union territory of India, displaying, as Sherpa mentioned, the ODOP products and geographical indicator products, will have a QR code compatible with your mobile wallet, the digital currency, and with the UPI. We will also have a frictionless credit display, which basically again is a cutting-edge technology under which any credit to be given, say, to our farmers, the information relating to that would be immediately available on your mobile phone or your iPad, from the land records to your Aadhaar to your previous credit history. And this will enable credit to be given within a few minutes of time with each of the farmers. And so from that point of view, I think we also have, I hope all of you have downloaded our digital app, the G20 India digital app, which is again a state-of-the-art app, which enables you to get this in any language in the G20. You can get it in Portuguese, in German, in Japanese. And this will also enable you to talk to anybody who doesn't understand your language, say from Hindi to Japanese or from Portuguese to German. It will be instant conversation through the app. You can navigate from one part of the Bharat Mandapam to any other part of this complex. It will enable you to get there without a problem. And any information that you may need on our presidency, on the G20, on India, UPI, any aspects of this is available. And of course, if you feel like a yoga break, that's also there on our app. So I'll stop here. I'm sure there are many other things, but we will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I hand over to Foreign Secretary Shivinay Quatra.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to friends from the media, both domestic and international. I have 6 brief points to make, besides what has already been shared by my colleagues, senior colleagues, Sherpa, Chief Coordinator and Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs. Point number first, if you really want to get a sense of India's vision, priorities and approach to the G20 presidency, I would encourage all of you to read the op-ed that the Honorable Prime Minister of India has written yesterday. It captures, it distilled a sense of how India envisions and looks at the ongoing G20 presidency of India. 2, the coming together of the 41 heads of delegations, heads of state, government, heads of international organization in India starting yesterday is under Prime Minister's personal leadership and direction. It is essentially a celebration of the coming together of the G20 family. And as our Sherpa mentioned earlier, it's the largest ever participation of the Global South in India. 3, whether it concerns India's national priorities with regard to G20 or the priorities of G20 countries as a collective, as also the concerns and interests of the Global South. The specifics of the agenda which the Sherpa and the Department of Economic Affairs Secretary mentioned, they have been structured in a most inclusive and the harmonious concepts of one earth, one family, one future. 4th, very briefly with regard to the program of the G20 Summit. The summit official conference program is structured around 2 sessions. First one Earth, starting tomorrow morning, One Family tomorrow afternoon, and One Future in the morning of the 10th. Besides 3 sessions of the conference, there would also be a couple of sideline events which are currently being structured involving India and other heads of the state who are visiting us here. Third, a dinner by the Honorable President of India tomorrow. Fourth, a visit to the Rajghat to pay homage to Mahatma Gandhi. And fifth, a spouses program. These would be the broad 5 elements of the summit. And the last, 5th point which I wanted to make, Honorable Prime Minister of India will also be hosting several sideline bilateral meetings during the course of this G20 summit with the visiting heads of state governments and the other leaders who are going to be in Delhi, as I said, starting yesterday till the departure over 10th and 11th. I would stop here and see if we have any questions on this.
Thank you very much, sir. May I lay the ground rules before I open the... Please sit down. Thank you. Please introduce yourselves and the organization you represent. We will take questions in a group because we don't have time. Let me start with Manish here, TV9. Microphones will come to you. Please wait.
Thank you. First of all,
please introduce yourself and the organization.
This is Manish Jha from TV9. Amitabh Ji, Foreign Secretary and Chief Coordinator, I must tell you first of all that arrangement at International Media Center are really excellent. I have attended 4 summits before this summit, and I can tell very proudly that these arrangements are really best. So thank you so much. So my question I would like to ask in Hindi. Amitabh ji,
continuously you are talking about a joint declaration. You worked hard for it, and you said that joint declaration will come very soon and it will be very specific. But from China's side, about in the joint declaration, no consensus should be made in the name of one Earth, one family, one future.
Joint declaration आएगा या नहीं आएगा, अगर आएगा तो कैसे आएगा?
Yeah, Yashi, yep.
This is Yeshi Seli from the New Indian Express. I'd like to know, Yeshi Seli from the New Indian Express. I'd like to know who's representing African Union. Is it Wacky Sol for the G20? And is the G20 officially going to be
Yeshi, you're not audible. Could you repeat again?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So this is Yeshi Seli from the New Indian Express. I'd like to know who is representing the African Union for the summit, and is the G20 officially going to be called G21 after the conclusion of the summit?
Okay. Siddhant.
Hi sir, I'm Siddhant from WION. My question is, do you think the absence of the Chinese president impacts the summit's proceeding? Is it an attempt by the Chinese to undermine? Do you see it in that way as well?
The lady in yellow behind.
Samira Hussain with the BBC. I'm wondering if you think that that Ukraine will derail talks and the ability to come up with a joint statement.
I'll repeat the question. None of you are pretty audible. Say, will Ukraine derail the talks and the ability to come up with a joint declaration? That's what I heard.
Will Ukraine derail the talks?
Yeah, I'll take one more question here. Yeah, right here. Nainima, yeah.
This is Nainima Basu from ABP Live. Just one question. On the Russia-Ukraine war, will there be a specific discussion on the Black Grain Initiative? Thank you so much.
Sir, can I pass on these 5 questions, perhaps?
So let me first say that on the journey of the joint declaration, I would prefer to speak after the summit is over, because
All right, viewers, so that's the press conference right now going on. The G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant, you have the G20 coordinator, you had the finance secretary detailing what to expect over the course of the next few days. But of course, all eyes will be on the Delhi declaration. Will there be consensus by the end of the G20 summit? That's the big question. Mr. Amitabh Kant feels hopeful, but if you go back to what happened in Bangalore with the finance ministers meet, will Ukraine be a sticking point? It's happened before with the G20 summit.
Welcome, Mr. Khaitan. So good to have you on Business Today television. Ramakrishna Forgings has, of course, been one of the heroes of this particular rally that has taken root on the Lal Street and is in the business of providing die forgings of carbon and alloy steel, micro alloy steel, and of course stainless steel. They make things like crown wheels, ring gears, crankshafts, connecting rods, steering arms, tie rod arms, and of course stub axles. These are all things that you see going into a car near the chassis. Tie rod ends are parts which are fixed on the tire so that they can move right and left depending upon how you move the steering. Welcome, Mr. Khaitan, and one of the finest moments to be in India if you are an auto ancillary. Tell us how the business outlook is, and then we'll drill it down.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewer of Business Today. First, I would like to clarify that what products you have mentioned. We do make all products, but one of more prominent product is front axle beam, where we are quite prominent in India and overseas market. And we are basically in commercial vehicle, not in passenger vehicles. So we do make the product for the commercial vehicles or on all kind of commercial vehicles. Business certainly right now is doing good, and in domestic as well as overseas market both, and it looks quite promising in upcoming time.
Understand from you, you've recently won about 500 odd crore rupees of multiple orders. Could you break it down for us? For which of these segments have you got these orders for? You do operate in the auto and the non-automotive segment, so if you could break it down for us.
Yeah, see, its major order only is from the automotive segment, and like what I said earlier, we were making front axle beam. Now we have moved significantly into the rear axle product. So majority of these orders are from rear axle, and one big order for about 150 crore was from the farm equipment side. So it was from the auto and farm equipment mix of that on these orders.
Okay. Could you also tell us, with this order, what does your order book look like right now? And what is the order book visibility for the rest of the financial year 2024?
See, with these are not, I will say, exactly orders in terms of sale, because these are long-term contracts. And supply depends upon the demand scenario. So it varies, but that's the contract client has entered into us, that my share of business will be that with the client in a normal environment, and right now what they are buying. So, and in auto space, this depends entirely on the demand schedule, what kind of order you need to supply, and it varies month to month. And even in case of domestic, it's monthly schedules we get. In terms of exports, we get 2 to 3 month schedules, and we have to produce accordingly.
Okay. Also, if you could tell us the revenue mix right now, auto and non-auto, how is it split right now, and what do you foresee going forward from here?
Yeah, so right now we are at auto 78% and non-auto at 22%. And our endeavor is to take it to 70-30 in next 2 year time.
Okay. And within the auto segment, you've forayed into the EV space as well, sir. So what is going to be the revenue contribution that you expect in percentage terms going forward from the EV space?
So right now, what we are doing, we are working with our OEMs and working on multiple programs on the EV space, and we have almost 3% of our revenue from the EV, and we expect that it will go up to 6 to 7% in next 2 to 3 year time on the EV side.
Okay. Apart from this, sir, also wanted to ask you on the revenue outlook. You've already guided for about 5,000 crore rupees of revenue going forward from here. Would you be able to meet this target? Are you looking at the bullish trend? Would you also want to revise it going forward? Your take?
Certainly, see, that was a guidance given some time ago. What guidance we are giving right now, a 15 to 20% volume growth for next 3 to 4 years on the CAGR basis. So every year we would like to grow by 15 to 20% on standalone RK flows. And prices may go up and down depending upon the commodity, but volume growth will be there. Because the market looks quite positive from here, and we find that we will grow both in domestic as well as export markets. And apart from that, what acquisitions and the others we are working on, that revenue will be separate, and consolidated revenue will be much more than that in next 2 to 3 year time. What 5,000 crore I think was for the year FY26 we have targeted earlier. I think console level we will be much more than that.
Much more than that. Could you also quantify for that for us? How much more are you expecting? 5,100, 5,200, or likes of 5,500 or so?
No. So what I am trying to say, if we look at a 15 to 20% volume growth and current commodity prices remains at the same level, we will be around 5,000 on the standalone basis, certainly in FY26. And with the acquisition of Multitech, JMT, all these will also contribute to the top line. Yes. And that will add. And it depends upon how these units pan out in the next 2 years. So certainly we have an aggressive target with these units, and we would like to do a much better number. I cannot give you a definite number of what we will achieve, but certainly it will be much better than what we have said on the 5,000.
You talked about JMT, sir, and I was about to come to that. You've recently got the approvals from the NCLT and you've agreed to offer about 125 odd crore rupees to JMT Auto. I want to understand the timelines of the acquisition. By when do you see the overall contribution coming in from this asset in terms of top line? What is the incremental revenue contribution that you are expecting, and from when? First you answer this, and then I'll ask you about the debt also.
Yeah, so FY23-24, we are not looking for any revenue from this acquisition, because we need to take over the unit and do the improvement in the plant and machinery. And there may be some low-hanging fruit we will catch on that, but I am not counting on that. So for the first year of revenue will be FY25. And we are looking to have a 200 to 250 crore top line from this unit alone in FY25. And then we will go further at least 40-50% per annum for next 2 years in this unit.
Okay. Would you be taking any financial liabilities from JMT Auto, and what would that do to your overall debt levels currently?
No, there will be no financial liability because it's from the NCLT process, so it's a clean company in terms of liability.
Okay. What is the current debt on your books, sir? And what is the plan to reduce? You have been on a declining trend when it comes to debt reduction plans of yours. Could you tell us what is the situation right now and the track going forward?
If you look at my FY23 numbers, my net debt was around 1,100 crore. But certainly we are making a lot of investment in this year. Like we have acquired Multitech, we have to invest in JMT, even we have to work on the Ramkrishna Titagarh Railways company, where we have to invest our share of equity. Apart from that, there is a lot of investment plan in terms of capex on a standalone basis in Ramkrishna Port. So all this together will certainly take care of my this year's free cash flow. And debt level may remain at this level, at FY23 level, or maybe little elevated, maybe by 100-150 crore on the net debt side. But certainly from FY25, it will again start going down. And you can see that whatever we are spending, we will be we are earning from overall all the verticals. Spending will be not on that level, and we will be able to reduce 200-300 crore of debt every year.
Okay. Sir, lastly, if you could help us understand, the margin outlook that you have for your company, the current input costs and that are aiding the margin, and what is the outlook on that one, and the volume guidance for FY24?
Yeah, certainly on the, I will come to volume guidances, which I have already said we will grow by at least 15 to 20% in terms of volume growth.
Yeah.
Coming to margin, we are certainly 22 plus in on the EBITDA side, and endeavor is to improve on that, and we will try to improve on margins little bit, because input or commodity is a pass through for us with our customers. So we are not worried about that. Certainly we have to look at other costs like energy cost, manpower cost, and maybe other inflationary cost which is impacting all the areas. But overall, we are bringing in efficiencies by way of automation, by way of